KFAN welcomes some great shows to Mystic Lake Amphitheater. The legendary Bob Dylan will be there July 6th, Motley Crue August 21st, and Santana and the Doobie Brothers August 27th. Get complete details on all of our upcoming shows on the concert page, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Mike Russo from The Athletic back here on The Fan. Kevin Gorg and Joe O'Donnell will be in at 10 o'clock for a full hour to talk about the Minnesota Wild, and we're going to dissect every single word this next guest says right now on The Fan. And that is Matt Sells, the Wild assistant general manager. A lot of pressure on you, Matt. We're going to be breaking down everything you say.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll choose my words carefully then.
So, Matt, obviously this is a complicated offseason. You know, last summer, no big deal. You just had to get Kirill Kaprizov signed. That was easy. But this is a really interesting offseason. Obviously, you have $15 million worth of cap space presently, roughly. You know better than me. You have 8 unrestricted free agents, a couple restricted free agents, and Quinn Hughes to get done. So there's a lot of things, I'm sure, that come down to organizing everything that you have to do. Where do you get started now?
Yeah, I think the approach that I always, or that I've tried to take the last few years with just anything kind of cap related, team building related, is start with yes. Just if Bill Guerin or somebody else in our hockey ops staff says, "Is this possible? Can we do this?" Just have a yes mindset. That's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Like there's sort of always a way. So you said $15 million in cap space. I've got my 6 or 7 different projections up right now that I don't have that number in any of them. So
okay.
Cap space is a moving target, right? So it kind of depends. What are you counting right away? It's who are you projecting guys that weren't on the team this year that are already signed that could make the team next year? We just got Charlie signed. Hunter Haight made good impressions on the team, and then we were by and large happy with a lot of our season. Obviously it didn't end the way you want it to, but it only ends that way for one team. So we have interest in everybody that we had. If you'd like to take a crack at things again with the group that you had, but that's just not always realistic. So sort of one thing at a time.
So and when I said $15 million, I was taking your 8 essentially signed one-way forwards, your 5 one-way defensemen, and your 2 goalies. I was not including guys that you have to re-sign like Brink and Hunt, Haight maybe making the team, people like that, which brings us to the complication, because you have these 8 unrestricted free agent guys. I'm sure you'd love them all back. That can't obviously happen, especially at the current numbers. So where do you start there? Do you start by essentially deciding who you want back, and then reaching out to those agents to make sure the feeling is mutual, and then begin from that point?
Yeah, you're pretty close there. The first thing you kind of have to do is take a little bit of a breather or a step back from a very emotional end of the season. Right away, John Hines and his staff, they have some exit meetings with players where he's able to sort of gauge their interest in returning to the team, as well as coaches. They give us their feedback on the players that we had. We're going to have some pro scouting meetings this week where we'll have a bigger group in that'll share their opinions on how we looked and how certain players performed, and also kind of give us a window into what are some of the other options out there for replacement players if we aren't able to get something done with our many restricted and unrestricted free agents. So it's complicated. You take the opinion of a lot of people. But the most important is firstly from the players, right? Do the players want to return, and if they want to return, and we have an appetite for that as well, that's usually a good starting point for getting a deal done. If both parties want to accomplish the same thing, typically there's a deal to be had. But there's a financial component of it, and like you said, that we have a lot of free agents, and we had an expanded roster after the trade deadline, and that just doesn't exist once you start a new season. You can have 23 players on the roster, so
right.
There will be some changes.
Yep, we were talking with Matt Sells, the Wild assistant general manager, one of three Wild assistant general managers, and Matt is largely their contract negotiator. And what is your, like? I know that Bill Guerin doesn't love the game. You know, he usually gets to the number. What is your art of negotiation? Do you essentially follow his lead on that? Where, if you're calling Michael McCarron this week, you're not messing around. You're giving him certain terms and what you guys are willing to pay, and you're pretty much, there's very little wiggle room there.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's different styles. I suppose there are certain. There are agents, as much as we may be loath to play the game, there are agents who love that and make a living of it. And to their defense, or in their defense, there are many teams that like that as well. Look, we do a lot of research on it, right? So we know generally what each player's worth. Plus, there's internal restrictions on what we can pay as well. So sometimes you got to try to get creative with other things, which is when you get into like trade protections and stuff like that, right? But we do a lot of research to cut through the back and forth, and my style is just really honest. That's the feedback I always get from agents, good or bad. If they ask me a question, they'll know exactly where I stand on it, and most guys actually appreciate that, because that's what kind of allows you to get right to it. I'm not afraid to tell an agent that we really like your player, that we want to keep them, and here's why. Here's what we like. Here's why. Because then they know, okay, well, he's telling us he wants them. He's giving us that information, so we can also trust him when he says this is what the team has to offer, or this is where we think he's going to come out in the end financially, and usually you're not that far off,
right?
Between agent and team.
Let me ask you about two players specifically, if you don't mind, Matt, and just because they are the two players that Bill Guerin has at least said publicly that he would like back, and one is Michael McCarron and the other is Matt Zuccarello. Michael is an interesting guy because, as you know better than anybody, this offseason there are not a lot of unrestricted free agent centers out there. He was extremely coveted at the trade deadline, where to the point that you had to pay a second-round pick to get him. So how do you get somebody that you want back to be willing to maybe compromise when he knows that you probably can't pay him nearly what he could get on the open market?
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do, and you would never begrudge a player taking a better offer elsewhere. But you know what? We're sitting here. It's still in May. Free agency isn't until July 1st. So theoretically, you might think you know what you can get as an agent or a player. But if we can make him a quality offer that satisfies some of his key needs, I think he's going to be pretty receptive to that. With Matt and Michael both, you're talking about two important players for our team. They have a positive impact, obviously on the ice, but just generally in the rink. Matt's brings us such a confidence and swagger and playmaking that's not easily replicated. And then Michael is just, he brings a confidence and a commitment level and a battle level every single night, every face-off draw, every penalty kill that again is coveted around the league, and it's hard to replace. So we obviously like both players, and we'll see what we can come up with on both accounts.
Would you characterize that you've actually started negotiations with anybody yet, or is it still in that preliminary stage that you've talked about where you're reaching out to agents to sort of cultivate mutual interest?
Yeah, we aren't that far removed from the end of the season. So we have had preliminary talks, whether it's Bill or I, with several of our unrestricted free agents. The restricted guys kind of have to, it's not fair to say backseat, but they have to wait a little bit more because there's more of a defined end point to what they're doing, and the end point for an unrestricted free agent just comes sooner. Right. So that's one of the things that I'm busy with right now is we've got to make some bona fide offers to previous draft picks to keep their rights, and then we've got to draft up qualifying offers to restricted free agents that we have both in the NHL and the American Hockey League to make sure that we retain their rights. So that's something that we're doing there. So there's a lot going on. I think all the players and agents are doing their kind of end of season meetings as well, where they're talking about, okay, what do we want to get accomplished, and I'm sure the agents can forecast teams that may be interested in players. So then players would have to say, okay, well, would we want to wait until July 1 and potentially talk with other teams, or is Minnesota the spot that we want to be at, and encourage the agent to try to get something done in advance of July 1. So it's a little bit of fact finding still right now, but I would expect some action over the next couple of weeks.
And some of the restricted free agents that Matt's talking about, the two NHL guys are Bobby Brink and Damon Hunt. Both have ARB rights as well if they want to elect to go to arbitration, or vice versa. The club can elect that as well. We're talking about Matt Sells, the Wild assistant general manager. Quinn Hughes, it was your brainchild to go get him, so now there's a lot of pressure on you to get this contract extended. I mean that a little tongue in cheek, but if you know the history of how the Wild got Quinn Hughes, it was literally Bill Guerin was on like a 9-day, 9-city USA hockey scouting trip when Matt Sells called him up and said, maybe you should call Jim Rutherford and find out about Quinn Hughes. And next thing you know, about a week and a half later, the Wild are making that blockbuster. But obviously, this is going to be an interesting summer because just like last year with the Kirill Kaprizov, you have the ability to extend him as of July 1. Kirill seemed a lot more complicated than this one. Maybe it's the agents in my mind. Maybe it's Quinn's public desire to stay. Where do you go with that? Because there's multiple ways you could do this. You can go a 3-year deal and, align him with Jack, and keep this in the win now window, or you can go long term as well.
Yeah, it's same with Kirill. Negotiating contracts with some of the best players in the NHL is a very good problem to have because it means you've got some of the best players in the NHL. So Quinn, we want to keep. He's open to staying. So I would expect that again, as obviously a huge priority for the organization, not as time sensitive as some of the unrestricted guys or the guys that we need to get qualifying offers to. Quinn extension couldn't even take place until after July 1. So I think that we've had some discussions with Quinn and his group. We'll have some more here over the next few weeks, and ultimately he wants to win the Stanley Cup. Like he's an incredibly passionate and driven hockey player. He's such a treat to be around because he loves the game so much and he puts so much into it. He cares as much as anybody I've ever seen in the game. And yeah, he's just an absolute treat to have around, and we'd love to keep him as long as he's willing to be here.
Matt, obviously Bill has been, extremely public about, wanting to get a number one center or another top six forward but that costs money, that costs assets. I guess the one thing we learned with Quinn last year is that it doesn't necessarily have to happen in the free agent period. Last year you just signed Nico Sturm and you weren't able to go out and get that number one center, maybe because he didn't exist. So if all of a sudden, we get through the summer, I don't think fans should necessarily panic if you haven't made that move yet. But how do you weigh this desire with the rising cap world when you know that so many different teams out there have a ton of cap space and maybe more expansive assets than you all have left, just because you had to give up so much in the Quinn Hughes trade? It does seem like there's a pressure point there that makes it extremely difficult for you, just because so many teams now can afford these type of players.
Yeah, being able to afford a player is one thing. Being able to actually acquire them is another. And I think that we have done a pretty good job within the organization over the last few years of having an aggressive mentality, but knowing that you still need to be patient, right? You can't, I guess. We can't force another team to make a trade, right? So if you're talking about a top six forward on another team, we're in a really unique space where I don't see a lot of teams rebuilding. Everybody's looking to be better right now. It's hard to be better right now when you are trading away a top six forward or a top four defenseman or a top goalie. So the circumstances have to really align for things like that to happen. And until there is something available, you have to remain patient. You have to make sure that you have a team and an organization that players want to go to, and they believe that if they go to your team, they can win. And that I believe is what we currently have. We have a few star players in our organization. We have a phenomenal culture. We've got a great hockey market, a passionate fan base. This is the type of place that I do believe players want to be. So we'll be aggressive when the time comes.
Yeah, I actually, from somebody that I feel is objective and covers the sport for a living and talks to tons of agents and teams and players, I couldn't agree with you more. That's the biggest change that I see in the Wild the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of it is, having guys like Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov and Eric Sneck and a great core, and maybe a bold general manager in Bill Guerin. But when you add a Quinn Hughes, I think it gets everybody's attention up, and you see it. I mean, I saw it at the Olympics when Quinn was just raving to everybody about what it's like to play in Minnesota and how players are treated. And then, I'm watching the Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk podcast 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they're just going on and on about Matt Boldy and Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber and how much fun it is to hang out with those type of guys. And it is something that I'm sure gives you all pride inside that front office, because that's what you've been trying to create.
It's a tremendous source of pride. It's something that Bill Guerin has look, he played a long time in the league, played internationally. He's seen winning teams. He's seen great teams that didn't succeed, and he knows how important that culture piece is. And yeah, we take a lot of pride in, we put a lot of work into it. We put a lot of work into researching the types of players that we're going to acquire via trade. Is this player going to fit? We can probably take risks in that because we have such a strong leadership group with Kirill and Marcus and Jared that players, any player that comes in knows what the expectations of the Wild are, and they're allowed to have fun while they're here. And yeah, I really do believe this is a great place to play and live.
Yeah. Do you, from your standpoint now, like what's next? I mean, do you not get a vacation now this off season because of all the work that you have to do?
There is, that's the great lie that I sold my wife years ago when I went to the NHL. I said, "Wow, like
get the summers off."
Look, like there's no hockey being played in the summer, and there you know what, there is a window after all arbitration cases have closed and before prospect camps start to ramp up. There's a little sweet spot window there, a couple weeks in August that's pretty quiet. So at that time I'll be able to come up for air. But between the many contracts that we have to have ironed out over the next month or 6 or 7 weeks with the restricted free agents, it's going to be busy, but it'll be fun. We got a trip to the scouting combine coming up as well, and an entry draft, and yeah, there's always something going on.
What do you do at the combine? You don't have draft picks.
We still interview some players. I chuckle when you say that because we had a couple of years ago we had submitted a couple players on our interview list that when we did it, they hadn't maybe taken off, so to speak. So we get to June and I don't know what we were picking, 20 something in the draft. And we had this kid that was going to be a top 5 pick come in for an interview. And it was very quick. We're like, hey, sorry, we're wasting your time. Best of luck in your career. All the best. But yeah, we still have a few picks. So Judd and his guys are hard at work. We've got amateur scouting meetings next week, and a lack of early picks doesn't mean those guys are stopping their work. They're looking for people that could be available in our range that they think could be impact players for the Wild someday. Yeah.
Well, last one for you, Matt. Like I obviously say that tongue in cheek, but when you are in this win now mode and you have to trade as many assets as you do, is there a pressure that you have to now win now? Because you know that eventually the check is going to become due. Like, how do you sort of replenish all the assets that you are trading away to try to get number one centers or pay Quinn Hughes or Kirill Kaprizov, et cetera? Yeah.
I think it just you have to be a little more creative and look at other avenues. So I'll use an example that we finally got back into this space after failing for a few years. It's college free agents. Mm-hmm. We were able to add 2 defensemen that we're really excited about as an organization in Viking and Ben. And quite frankly, when we had multiple first and second round picks for so many years, a lot of what we heard when we try to schedule meetings with agents and players that were college free agents was, we appreciate your interest. You have too many prospects. I just don't see a fit. So college free agency, looking into Europe, making sure that our scouts in Europe are aware of our interest in players that aren't just 18 and 19 years old and could be 5 years out. We're open to European professionals that could come over and make a difference in 1 to 2 years. So, and again, the amateur scouts are still going to do their work. We're not, I think we're down to, we've got five picks still in this draft. So there's there's still opportunity there, and they're putting in their work, and yeah, look, you want to win now. I think that we're in a great position where we have some key veteran players, but we have a lot of years of if you were to grab, a core 5 or 6 group of players on our team right now, they've got a window that's just opening right now.
Yeah. Well, hey, Matt, I really thank you for your time. I'm sure I'll be in touch with you a ton this offseason, which I know you always gets you excited. Really appreciate it. And, it's going to be a busy month or two for you and an exciting month or two for everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. That is Matt Sells, one of 3 Wild assistant general managers, and really happy to have in studio Joe O'Donnell, the radio voice of the Minnesota Wild, gets the pleasure of working with Tom Reed and just everybody's pleasure of working with Kevin Fallness on a nightly basis. And Kevin Gorg from, what was FanDuel North.
Yeah.
We'll see what it's going to be soon.
Free agent.
Yeah.
From Canterbury Park.
Canterbury Park's
We're
Kevin
talking
Gorg.
Ponies today. What's up, Russo?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I don't know how much you heard that. First of all, Kevin, very sorry about your dad.
Thank you, Mike.
Man, what a beautiful tribute that you put on X, and what a portrait that you put on X. It's one of the great pictures.
Yeah, I treasure that one. I don't have a lot of pictures of us on our phone. I'm not a big picture taker, as you guys both know. I'll take someone's picture. I don't like to be in the pictures. Too much reality maybe for me. But no, Kenny was a gem in the golf circles in this metro area and throughout the state. So many great connections. So many people outpouring with support, and clearly 86 is a great run. So you celebrate the life that he lived. He didn't miss a game, by the way. He watched every game, loved watching the Minnesota Wild, loved Kirill Kaprizov. That was his favorite player. Always said, "Where's that Russian? What's that Russian going to do?" I'm like, yeah, he was special. And so, yeah, we're going to miss Kenny. I think services are going to be June the 4th. We're trying to lock that down this morning at the Assumption Church, where he belonged over in St. Paul, ironically in the shadows of Grand Casino Arena. But I appreciate you saying something.
Yeah. Was he the reason why you're a goalie?
Well, truthfully, yeah, because, he took me to my first hockey game when I was a kid, I think 5 or 6 years old at the old Met Center. We went and watched the North Stars play the California Golden Seals, and we sat behind the net. Gilles Meloche was in goal for the Golden Seals, so right away I identified with him because he was the closest player to me. And then shortly thereafter, my dad would shoot Nerf balls at me down in the basement, and then later, as I got a little older, tennis balls he'd shoot at me. And so, yeah, I think I decided by age 7 that was the position I wanted to play. That was the game I wanted to play.
We, I had Bill Guerin on last week, and we talked about sort of the mourning period that he had. I can only imagine it's the same with you both. I mean, when you go into a playoff series and then it abruptly ends, and now you're just, as you joked, you're a free agent. As Joe joked in our text messages, in case you didn't realize, I have nothing to do. I can come in anytime you need. But it is, right? Wouldn't you say, Joe, like you're flying back on that, I'm sure, very quiet plane home from Denver, and you're just probably devastated by the loss as much as the fans are.
Yeah, it's been weird for me up at the NHL level because of how quickly the switch gets flipped and then it's over, right? Whether you lose at home, on the road, in overtime, as the Wild did, you get beat 6-1. It doesn't really matter how it ends. You just know, hey, facing elimination, this could be the last day of the season, sort of thing. And then when it hits you, the next day, and Kevin will tell you this, and Mike, over the course of that 7-month season, your body just gets used to going to the rink or doing the same routine at some point. Other than the Olympic break, pretty much every other day you're going to the rink, or back-to-back days, or by every third day for sure, for a practice or a game, whatever. So it is really weird those first few days where it's your body's almost telling you it's time to go to the rink and there's nothing to go for. And I've been kind of watching a little bit of playoff hockey here. When they put the bracket up, the playoff bracket, and I see Avs 4, Wild 1, 4 games to 1, it's still... I'm I get this off my TV screen. It's still oddly painful. I don't know, man. It just felt like this team was, I know in years past getting out of the first round, oh man, this team, what a bummer. they got past the first round. It just felt like there was more there, a little bit more meat on the bone, maybe with better injury health or an extra bounce here, or maybe just a better effort in a certain period or half a game. Felt like that could have been a different series.
Yeah, Kevin, especially now that Cale Makar missed the first 2 games and is clearly hurt, as we saw in Game 3.
He didn't look like himself.
No, not at all. It really makes you realize what the Wild blew in Game 5 by blowing that 3-0 lead, because who knows? I would assume there's no way he's playing in 6 or 7 if he couldn't play in 1 or 2 of this game. Maybe it's different, but what a blown opportunity.
Yeah, it stings that much more. Truthfully, when you look at this pragmatically, he had more rest trying to get ready for games 1 and 2. And you go back to that Game 1 hit that Marcus Foligno had. Good clean hit, good aggressive hockey, the way Minnesota wants to play. And I know the Zuccarello hit in Game 5 is maybe a tipping point, but that was probably just a process of what had happened in Game 1. He likely wasn't playing back in Game 6 in St. Paul. And then, what does that mean if you go to Game 7? You can play the what-if game all you want. Bottom line is the Avalanche are finding out, like the Wild did, when you take out a key player or key players out of a lineup, it's that much more difficult at this time of year to win. What amazes me is Tortorella and Vegas, because the Wild, when they played Vegas during the regular season, I mean this sincerely, it was the men against the boys. Minnesota looked like a dramatically better team. There's no way that's the case now. Tortorella came in and they refound what they've always had. Big, physical, clog up the middle, block shots, and look who they've played in the playoffs. Speed-laden teams with skill. Utah, Anaheim, Colorado, and they have shut these teams down with the way they play. I didn't believe in their goaltending. I likely was wrong. Carter Hart's a much better goalie than I probably gave him credit for. But that team, man, they're the same guys, right? The same core guys that won those cups, and they play such a hard brand of hockey, and Colorado's finding out the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at what Mitch Marner's doing, what Jack Eichel's doing, what Pavel Dorofiev's doing. It's pretty unbelievable. Believe it or not, we're going to take a break.
Hey, you finally got it figured out.
Yeah.
Not you, but the
Brett, I think, spilled some water on the board back there or something.
Oh, no.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And so we've been stretching. Let's put it that way.
You need a breather.
Matt Sells almost did 2 hours with me, if you guys weren't here. So we'll do that. But then I do want to talk to you about Matt Sells. We talked about a lot of the offseason moves that the Wild will be working on. We'll talk about that. And then maybe we'll do a little Brett's Breakaways at some point. We'll see. This is Michael Russo from The Fan. We are going to be back with Kevin Gorg and Joe O'Donnell after these maybe long messages. I don't know. Do we have to get like 20 minutes of commercials?
Not quite.
All right, good. All right, see ya.
This is FM 100.3.
This year, including Gabriel Iglesias, July 31st, Joe Bonamassa, August 15th, and Snoop Dogg, September 5th. Get complete details on all of our upcoming shows on the concert page, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Kevin Gorg and Joe O'Donnell in studio with me. I'm Mike Russo from The Athletic. Where to go? First of all, how's Canterbury right now?
It was great all weekend. We had, I think, over 7,000 fans for opening night on Saturday. We did the Bulldog racing on Sunday, which is family day. Joe and his family were out there. We had over 11,000 fans, which was awesome. And then, yesterday was a little lighter, probably 5,000 or 6,000. But the crowds were energetic. It was fun. It was great to be out there. The weather was perfect. I mean, it was spectacular. PA was doing his thing, so we had a good time.
Hang on a second. You have to tell the listeners out there that we're not there at Family Day about the Bulldog race, because you called a great Bulldog several heats live from the dirt, and there was one moment in particular that just made me...
Well, there were a couple of moments. These Bulldogs were like trying to savage each other. I'm like, what are we doing here? And then, unfortunately, the gate opens, and this always happens. The ones that are trained properly run in a straight line, which is usually 1 or 2 in each heat, but there's always a couple that end up over to the left on the turf course. One Bulldog over to the turf course and starts urinating, which is not a big deal, but the other one, unfortunately, he went to town, did the number 2, and I'm like, I am not.
Live broadcast. Play-by-play, Kevin Gorg, Bulldog, taking care of the business.
We were groaning in horror as we watched him take care of business.
And I believe the quote was, "Oh no, not a number 2."
It was the whole thing was.
People were dying.
It was good fun
in like the bleacher area.
It was.
And you could bet on these Bulldogs.
Well, side bets
that would be tragic if your Bulldogs decided to go.
Right. I mean. Yeah. side bets, I always tell people there's like 8 Bulldogs in each heat. If you got 8 people in a group, or you can find 8 people, all throw in $5, just take a number. There's no way of knowing which Bulldog's going to win. They all look, they're big, rugged guys. They're kind of thick and chunky, and they've got slobber everywhere. But then, again, there's always one that knows what it's doing and just busts the gate and off it goes. But you throw $5 in a hat, you pick a number, and if you win, we have 6 Bulldog heats, so we'll do the Corgis and we'll do the Wiener Dogs this summer. We could have a Kentucky Derby winner come to our track next weekend, and we'd get 5,000 fans. You tell people that we're going to have Corgi dogs and cupcakes, and there'll be 12 to 15,000 crazy people out there. They go nuts for these dog races.
That's unreal. Have you brought Joe up to the press box, by the way? Because that is fun when you go and watch PA call a race.
I have not. I've been to Canterbury multiple times now, and Kevin does a great job taking care of
bringing in the paddock and all that.
Yeah, but you got to come and watch Paul call a race.
Not going up to the press box.
It's worth your time. It is fun.
And he usually will drop your name in it. He'll call it like the Joe O'Donnell Invitational just out of the blue. It's kind of fun.
It is cool.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Wild. So I just had Matt Sells on, and this is obviously going to be a very, very busy offseason. Last year was a busy offseason for different reasons. It's because the Kirill Kaprizov negotiations took 3 months, essentially. This one, they've got 8 unrestricted free agents. You definitely want to get a couple done here so you get a little fiscal certainty going into the offseason. Clearly they're going to go after McCarron hard. Clearly they're re-signing Matt Zuccarello. My guess is like a couple million at $3 million, maybe a couple years, I would think. The question is Johansson. I can't imagine he's coming back at league minimum. So do you bring him back if he wants a couple million, or is that too much for you to stomach? Because at some point, you got to give guys like Hunter Hayden an opportunity and people like that. So where do you want to start? These unrestricted free agents, I'm sure they'd love everybody back, from Bogo to Tarasenko to McCarron to Zuccarello to Johansson, but you can't have them all back.
Nick Foligno.
Absolutely.
Didn't even bring him up.
Well, I think you're close right now, and I think that's the thing that Bill Guerin and his group has to understand is, if they're healthy in that series, I believe what Lou Nanne said, 100%. If Brody and Eck were healthy, which again is a big if, but if they were, Wild probably end up winning that series. So how much do you have to change what you have? And you're right, Michael. You've got some young players like Haight. I think of him. That kid, to me, looks like he's going to be a top 6 forward in this league. The Stramel situation. Charlie had a great year at Michigan State. I think it all plays into 2 things. Number one, you got to get Quinn Hughes locked up at some point this summer. Whether it's a 3-year deal or longer, I don't know. But that, to me, is priority number 1. And then it kind of trickles down from there. I don't think you need to change an awful lot with the way this team is assembled. Joe, maybe you have a different opinion, but I like the way this thing is set up right now.
I think, I don't think you're looking to change a lot. I don't know that you can change a lot, but I do find interesting is that only 13 skaters are under contract, So there could be more turnover than we've seen in years past just because of a numbers game. Tarasenko, I think I kind of put like Johansson, Tarasenko in like that same group. Like if you can get them, one of them or both of them back at a reasonable cost, I'd be okay with it. I don't think you want to start, breaking the bank on either of those guys. Unfortunately, Johansson was such a steal from a cap standpoint this year. It was kind of almost laughable. Finished with 49 points, made less than $1 million. So that was a great deal.
I think Johansson's an interesting one because if you could have him back at a couple million, but assure that he is going to be on your third line, I think that's the way to go, and then work on getting a top 6 guy.
I don't disagree.
I'm saying over Tarasenko.
Yeah, but I just thought he played so well with Eck and Boldy.
Yeah.
So I'm almost like, who does he play with if he's on the third line?
My issue with Johansson, and thank God that LaPanta is...
He's increased. Yeah, he's away from us.
The ocean. So
everything's fine.
And he's not podcasting this, right? We could just rip on LaPanta for the next 30 minutes and have a blast, and I'd be
no commercial breaks, right?
Yeah. But the problem with always bringing Johansson back is the default for the coaches is always to put him on that line.
Correct.
At some point, they need to have more than a 40-point guy on the left wing of Matt Boldy and Eriksson Ek. I don't care how well they look analytically. I care about actual goals, not expected goals. And I don't care if they have the best expected goals in the league. You have a 40 point left wing in your top 6. No team in the league would have this.
All right,
that's
so
a true cup contender.
Let me just throw this at you then. At what point do you need to have Kirill Kaprizov be able to play with somebody else that's not Matt Zuccarello?
Yeah, I don't disagree there too.
Like at some point he's going to retire.
I think Johansson has his place on this team. I think he's great on this team. But there's got to be a point where he because remember they brought him back last year at 100 thinking he would be third left wing.
Right.
But Tarasenko couldn't fit with that top 6, so he just became that guy. And I just always fear that because everybody knows he could do it, that's always going to be the default. They don't give anybody. Like if you had a Hunter Haight there and no Johansson, you're just going to play Hunter Haight until it works. That's my point. Is that like Tarasenko didn't really get a long runway. But to your point on Zuccarello, you're 100% right too. If you're bringing Zuki back, there's got to be an expectation here to Zuccarello that you are not always going to play with him. That the goal here is to go get a Brady Tkachuk or go acquire somebody else. You can get a Vincent Trocheck, put him in your top 6 as a center, and move Hartman over to the right wing on one of the lines, and maybe put Boldy up with Kaprizov. There just comes a point where they've got to start changing things.
Yeah. When Zuccarello got hurt in the Dallas series, is one of the things, a lot of the, Kaprizov, he misses him, and immediately I'm not disagreeing with any of those takes. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, but immediately I was like, well, what the heck are the Wild going to do when Zuccarello retires?
Yeah.
He's not 27 years old. He's 38 years old. At some point, Kaprizov has to get more comfortable playing with other players, both power play and 5-on-5.
What's interesting is that the Wild, and I should have asked Matt Sells this, but we didn't have enough time.
Call him back.
No. But I should have asked Matt Sells this because, Matt is on the page of Bill Guerin at times where it's, they believe that you can compensate for not having that top 6 forward top 6 center because you have play driving wingers. Boldy is that. Kaprizov is that. Maybe a Brady Tkachuk, if you go get him, could be that instead of a center. But the problem is, I just watched that Colorado series, and those guys were largely Boldy and Kaprizov shut down in that series. And what was really the death knell of the team is their center depth compared to Minnesota's. The Jack Drurys, the Nazem Kadris.
The vacancy was quite noticeable.
And so that's why I just think that, they've got to figure out a way to upgrade the middle. They must.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Russo. I want to hold your feet to the fire. Do you think if there's one more big swing here and we anticipate, the attempt will be there at least, is it this summer or is it in season?
I think it's going to be in season, and here's why. I don't think that Sonny Mehta as a new GM is trading Jack Hughes now. He's got Nico Hischier. I think Hischier is going to be the key one because he is a year from free agency, and if he gives them any indication that they're not going to be able to get a deal done, I think he is going to be put to market. But Austin, here's the thing with Austin. He has term left on his contract. I just have a feeling that Austin's the type of guy that's going to say to them, one more year. The other reason is he's got an agent in Judd Moldover who's got Connor McDavid too on 1 year left on his contract, 2 years left on his contract. But really, as we learned with Quinn Hughes, 2 years basically means
1 year.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Right.
Judd could play this where he's got both guys essentially on the trade market at the same time. I just have a feeling Austin's going to give him another year. So I don't think that Austin's real.
Nylander said he wants to stay there, right? And I wonder how that affects Austin Matthews.
Right.
Is that a good thing?
Yep.
Or does he look at Nylander the way some folks do and go, I don't know if this guy's serious about winning. I don't know if I can win with him as my running mate.
All I can tell you is Elliot Friedman did report that they met via Zoom, Matt Sundin and John Chaika and Austin Matthews, and everything was amicable, and he basically said to them, I want to win in Minnesota. So that's why
Toronto.
I'm starting Toronto. Yeah,
that would be amazing.
He really wants to win in Minnesota.
Can we get that Zoom audio?
Well, we'll have Eric Johnson on at the end of the hour, and Eric is the
I
one
want that bold prediction, by the way. I can't wait to hear EJ on with you because
plus he's a thoroughbred guy, so
he is a horse racing guy, and he'll take the blame for that debacle with the Lakeville guys at the track the other night, and it'll be fine. Those guys have I think, a good plan ahead. But no, seriously.
We'll have to, if you don't mind, we'll have to explain to people what you mean there in a second. But I do want to ask, like, so then to finish your question, like Robert Thomas, I don't know, as a new GM, Alex Dean, are you really trading Robert Thomas? So the question is, who's really available? Right now, we've got no indication that Dylan Larkin wants out of Detroit. So he sure might be the guy, or Trocheck, who's not really your prototypical number one center. That's why it just wouldn't shock me, because Brady Tkachuk is buddies with Quinn.
Yeah.
Has all the respect in the world for Quinn. I think he's going to look at what Quinn did and said, you know what? I'm going to I'll go on record right now that he is not re-signing in Ottawa.
I agree.
He is not. He's gone. So at some point, does he look at it like the way that Quinn did with Vancouver and not quote unquote request a trade, but say, hey, just so you know, I'm gone.
Yep.
And then Ottawa starts looking at it like, you know what? Let's look at the template that Vancouver just did by getting a haul for Quinn Hughes by acting right away. We'll do that with Brady and put him on the market. The question is, one, could the Wild get him? Two, would the Wild have the assets to give up? Because that would take them out of any center deal. So, like, could you go get a Brady Tkachuk and now you have play driving wingers up and down your lineup, but then you have the same center issue.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
The other thing too is, sometimes I think we forget how much power the players have. Whether it's the no move clauses that are in the deal or just telling a team I'd rather go to this market than that market. I remember when the Flyers were trying to get rid of Claude Giroux a couple of years back at the deadline, he basically said, I want to play in Florida with the Panthers.
Yeah.
So that really limited the hand of Chuck Fletcher at the time, who was running the Flyers, and they ended up getting Owen Tippett, great player. But like sometimes if a player, if it's Brady Tkachuk or whoever, goes, I'd rather go here and here, as opposed to just put me on the open market, then maybe the Wild catch a break is my point with, like, they don't have to, they can't offer as much as maybe a different franchise could, but they get a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because that player wants to go there.
So
Does that make sense?
On the drive here today, I was talking to somebody that's an executive in the NHL, and he said exactly what you said to a T. He basically said, because I said to him, like, don't you think the Wild's problem here is that everybody has cap space, everybody has a desire, right, everybody has better assets. Yeah. But what he said to me is that the Wild have become an attraction, and if those players with no move protection essentially say, I want to go to Minnesota, that limits what other teams can do, and that puts the Wild in a position. What Quinn did that was a huge favor to Vancouver is, even though he had no trade protection, he was involved with it. So they were able to open it up to everybody. And he knew, so like where Austin Matthews, Brady Tkachuk, or the difference with those guys is they have the full protection.
Yeah.
So like that.
But if they say, I want to go to Florida or Tampa or Minnesota, now you're down to three teams, and then it's just
and I think that's the Wild will be banking on. Yeah. I think what's interesting now that Jesper Wallstedt cannot be traded, I would assume, because we don't know how long even if they know Philip Gustafson's going to be ready by the start of the season or middle of training camp or whatever, you don't know what he's going to look like.
Kevin Gorg is going to throw up in his mouth if you say Wallstedt and trade in the same sentence.
Well, can't trade. I'm just going to say this right now, Like, if you're an organization that believed in somebody enough to move up in the draft and pick a goalie in the top 20 picks, and you develop this kid, and he bottoms out and comes back the way he did this year, and he's not even yet to his prime, and he's shown us who he likely is going to be for the duration of his career, I don't know if you can ever move this guy, in my opinion. This is one person's opinion. I'm wrong more than I'm right. I get all that. But that kid showed you something this year. And so I keep hearing all these pie-in-the-sky trades where you're going to move this asset, you're going to move that asset, and you're going to get, maybe a guy like Austin Matthews. Is it worth it to go get Austin Matthews if you have to lose what could be a top 5 goalie in this league for the next decade? I say no. And so I'm bullish on the fact that you have the most important position in our sport locked down. You have 2 right now, 2 that are capable, but you might have a kid here that could be elite. I don't move them.
Okay, move them. Why based, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, why based on 10 playoff games do you now believe?
Why based on the entire balance of his career, like where this kid was mentally, what the time he put in, the work he put into, because when you play as poorly as he did a year ago in the American League, you don't have just a playoff run, a full season of work. I don't know, man. And the pressure that goes along with it.
Let's go devil's advocate. I can go on 15 different tangents here, but like we're in a league now where it doesn't seem like you need elite goaltending to win. Like look at Carter Hart.
Carter Hart was just out of hockey for 2 years.
Exactly.
And now
Darcy Kemper won a cup.
From the
like it almost seems like we're in a league now. I mean, let's also point out that Philip Gustafson had a really good regular season.
He had a great season.
So I just but we watch them lose because they have no stud center, especially with Eriksson out. And that would be my only thing. Like, at the end of the day, you look at Jesper Wallstedt's numbers because he had the couple bad games in the Denver series that clearly they wound up being pedestrian numbers. It was, to your point, it was great in the Dallas series. So I don't know that like
it's a tough one.
This is the quandary because now if you're going to get one of these great guys and you're not trading Jesper, which I would agree with you can't happen right now. What do you do to get the other team's attention? Do you have to offer up an Eriksson? Do you have to offer up a Brodin? Do you have to, I mean...
These are things you have to think about, and again...
Like, my point is that if you want an Austin Matthews or Brady Tkachuk or Robert Thomas, Danilo Yurov and Charlie Stramel alone ain't getting it, right?
No,
you're going to have to...
chance.
Like, Toronto wants to win. They're not in a rebuild.
And I think to your point, Michael, the reason you wait maybe to end season
is because maybe Phillips reestablished himself or Jesper.
Either way, you've got two really capable goalies of being number one guys in this league. We know that. They've both been proven now to be that guy. They're a huge asset because there are some desperate teams. I look at where Edmonton is right now. I mean, this window that they've had is closing. They have to find something. They don't have a goalie. They don't. The guys they've got right now aren't close, but they've got the weapons up front where they can make another run. They're going to be desperate. You could get a deal done.
Their window is really small because of what's going to happen with Connor McDavid if they don't win really quickly. Let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to do Brett's breakaways, but breakaways, right? There we go. And you'll love it today because Micheletti's not here. And then, but I do want to ask you to kind of talk about the Lakeville race.
I will get into the Lakeville race.
Joe O'Donnell, Kevin Gorg in studio, and Michael Russo will be back here on The Fan.
It's Russo Radio on The Fan. It happens only once a year in Las Vegas.
Our legendary...
Back here on The Fan, Michael Russo from The Athletic and with Kevin Gorg and Joe O'Donnell. And you were talking about Canterbury Park and some debacle with one horse in particular owned by a couple Lakeville NHLers.
The Paling boys. Super excited, by the way, that they're getting into horse racing. And I think one thing you'll learn when you're around the game, whether you're betting on a horse or whether you take the time and the money to invest in the game, there's going to be a lot of heartbreak involved. There's going to be great moments, and sometimes you have to go through the heartbreak to get to the great moments. So they went down to Tampa and either claimed or bought a horse named Pacific Standard. And so we've got this very competitive race. It's opening night at Canterbury. It's the middle of the race card. We've got this huge crowd. And I'm walking down to the paddock to do the paddock preview, and I've already been given the heads up that Ryan Paling and some of his brothers are there. Jake Ottinger's there. And my TV producer, Johnny the Mouse Mickelson, says, if you can find a way to connect with Ryan Paling, we'd love to do a TV interview. I've got the graphics built. I'm like, cool. So I run down there, and there's like 60 people by the 4 spot where the horse is going to be saddled. And I look at the tote board, and the 4 horses 1-9. This is like a 5-1 horse on paper in a really competitive race. 1-9 means they're all betting. Like all these 60 people have bet hundreds of dollars on this horse. So it's kind of funny. So Ryan comes over. He's got a cowboy hat on. Could not have been more cordial. We talked about the Ducks' success this year, how much fun he had. He played in Anaheim and overtime goal. And then he talked about horse racing and how Eric Johnson, your guest later this morning, was a teammate of his in Philadelphia and kind of stoked that fire. And then the fire really got going in Anaheim because Joel Quenneville, the head coach out there, is way into thoroughbred racing. And so
basically lived at Gulfstream and down in
Florida.
Loves
the game, loves the game. So they decided to get a group together and get involved in the game. Now, the race itself was a complete and utter disaster. This horse had been racing in more of a sprint race and had been showing a moderate amount of speed. Well, the gate opens and the horse hesitates, and is left in the gate and finishes. They pop the gate and the horse is like in last already. So the horse is up against it literally when the gate opens. And then horses that are used to being up front don't get a lot of kickback, right? When you're at the back of the pack, all the horses in front of you are kicking up that dirt in front of you, and he didn't like it. And he got further and further behind as the race went. Kind of got eased in the stretch, which I think looks a lot worse on paper the next time the horse runs than he actually ran, because the trip was just a nightmare of a trip. Pacific Standard is the horse I'd look at maybe next time he runs. I hope those guys don't look at this as like, oh man, what a fiasco. Let's get out of the game, because the game can be so much fun and so rewarding. It just was everything that could have gone wrong did. You bring all your friends and family out there. The horse gets bet, and then the horse just had a terrible trip.
Yeah. Dumb sports betting question, but I don't really understand sports betting. Like, so in horse racing, if you bet a ton on a horse, that changes the odds, but that does not happen in like sports betting, right? If there's a
big difference.
Yeah.
In horse racing, it's parimutuel gambling. So the odds are not set until the race goes off. So those odds are you'll watch when you come to Canterbury how those odds change in the 22 minutes. The more money that's bet on a horse to win, the lower the odds go. In sports betting, they can affect the odds, but you lock in when you make the bet. So if the Vikings are playing the Packers this next Sunday, and you like the Vikings in Green Bay, let's say Green Bay was a 3.5-point favorite, and you go in and you put $100 on the Vikings right now,
you're getting those odds.
You're getting the 3.5 points. Now, what might happen is a bunch of people might bet one of those sides in the coming days before the game. That line might switch and move. Doesn't affect your ticket. You've got it. In sports betting, you lock in when you make the bet.
Kevin loves the physical ticket.
Yes.
Love having that ticket in my hand.
You don't like doing the apps. So when you go to Vegas,
I much prefer to have, especially with like future tickets.
He wants the number 2 pencil, the book.
I want my golf tickets especially.
I've hung out with them at Westgate. I've seen it.
You know them. Yeah. You've seen the movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to be in Vegas coming up. It looks like a lot. So
yeah, you are.
I'll
you
have to text you some bets. Brett.
Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready, man.
Come on, Blakemore.
It's time for Brett Blakemore's Breakaway.
Here's a break. Kaprizov in alone. Nobody going to catch him. Kaprizov, score!
I don't know why you'd bet on the Vikings over Green Bay in that story.
And now, Blakemore's Breakaways.
You know, it'd be really funny if I was like knew how to work the phone lines here as a practical joke, as if we had Nicoletti on hold and just punched him up. That'd be funny.
Thank God I'm in the controls, and I don't have that. You guys mentioned it and then backed off, which was very happy for me because I had the audio queued up and ready to go for breakaways. Eric Johnson, who will be on the show a little bit later, said this on the Pat McAfee show.
I'm gonna have one hot take for you right now. I think one of Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid will be on the Minnesota Wild in the next 3 years.
Wow.
That's my hot take. I think they're going to find a way to get – they need a center. That's Minnesota's clear Achilles heel. They need a number one center. I think Bill Guerin finds a way to get a Matthews or a McDavid in Minnesota to push them over the edge. I really do.
Now, is Eric Johnson on to something or on something? And the other side question is, who gives up 97 if McDavid comes to Minnesota?
What a problem.
Man,
Joseph?
well,
That might be why he doesn't come.
I don't know that this fan base
He's not taking 98.
I don't think this fan base could handle it, and I don't mean that as a slight. I just think this town would go. You saw the Hughes reaction. Could you imagine if Connor McDavid?
It's not happening.
I mean, could you
no
just
offense.
imagine the reaction?
Come on.
This place would go.
The only thing I'll say, and this is just in general, is this is why I would not, throw away a ton of assets this summer on an inferior center when you have all this stuff that could happen in the next couple of years. Like, I think it's as much as pressure as this win now is, I think you got to be patient and wait. If Austin's not available this summer and that's who you want, you got to wait. If Robert Thomas is not available this summer and that's who you want, you got to wait. It does not make sense to me to throw away a bunch of assets on an inferior center.
I just can't imagine a trade scenario for Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
It would be like the I can't even think of a trade comp.
Well, especially when you've given up so many assets.
Right.
Like,
I can't imagine a roster that in the league.
Could you imagine?
No one can afford that, though. Like, when you look at what Kaprizov
well,
is
the
making.
cap is going up and up and up. Like, I guarantee you, Judd Mulder, his agent, he's looking at this now as like, I'm getting Austin and Connor $20 million next. There's going to be $20 million hockey players.
I don't disagree. But how in the world, if you've already got Kaprizov, you're going to lock down Quinn Hughes? I don't know how you do it financially. I don't.
Yeah.
The McDavid one seems pie in the sky. I hope Eric Johnson's right.
Remember, Boldy in 3 years is going to wind up being a freaking 17, 18
Yeah, that's...
Player,
Yeah,
you're going to have to give Quinn 15.
It's crazy how quickly that I feel like that deal is aged. Meaning, 7 times 7 was a deal right for Boldy originally. And now you're talking about 3 years from now.
Yeah.
It feels like he just got in the league,
It is.
And good for Matt Boldy. He deserves every nickel he's going to get. Great question. I think of the two, Austin Matthews is far more a logical answer than McDavid.
Well, Eric Johnson will be on in about 15 minutes. We'll ask him.
I love it.
Yep. Brett?
Now, if we take away, and I'm not going to include McDavid into this because obviously I think that's the correct answer. But out of all the available top centers that we just discussed, Matthews, we did mention Jack Hughes, but it seems like that's less and less likely. A Tkachuk, Robert Thomas. If you could, just taking away contracts and just putting that in the back of your head, or assets you have to give up, just how they would fit into this Minnesota Wild lineup. If you had a magic wand, which one do you think is the most ideal to fit in and really take control of this club?
Well, first of all, Brady is, Tkachuk is a winger, but he takes a lot of draws. I think he's the most likely that you can get, because I just do not buy he's ever re-signing in Ottawa. So I know at some point he's going to hit the market.
And he fits so well here. I mean, he really does fit well here with the way he plays the game. He's a Bill Guerin kind of player, right? Like, that's the kind of guy that I think would fit into this team so very well.
The Wild went hard after Thomas at the deadline. I think they were just gauging the marketplace. He sure is another one that might be realistic if he does not re-sign in New Jersey, because they're going to have to move him at some point. So I think Austin's probably the longest of the shots. I think Dylan's a pipe dream. Larkin. Robert, I don't know if Steen it makes no sense to
especially within the division.
Yeah, and it's a good contract. I think in a lot of ways they were trying to wake him up.
Yeah. I mean,
get his name out there.
Of all the names mentioned, he does the least for me, just personally.
Really, Robert?
Yeah, I love Robert Thomas. I want Tkachuk. Yeah. I do. I want some of that juice. I really do. I think he would be a great fit.
He had no points in the playoffs.
I'm not worried about that. That's Ottawa. I'm not worried about that.
You know who I do love, though? Is
they didn't score any goals in that sweep.
I think Heischer is a great
score 5 goals in 4 games.
Heischer's to me a more skilled Eriksson Ek.
I love Heischer.
Can you imagine if you had Heischer and Eriksson Ek? It's 1-2 up the middle.
It'd be fun.
It'd be a pain in the what to play against.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, the idea of Austin Matthews centering a Kaprizov line and just unlocking that even further, that to me is very tempting.
The one thing about Austin that just scares the heck out of me is his injuries. Like, he just had another surgery.
Correct.
I said it tongue in cheek last week, but I mean, it feels like he flies over to Germany every 3 months to get some stem cell transplant.
That part would really concern me, because we're further along in his career too. He's getting older. I don't want any part of that myself.
Yeah.
How old is he? 28? 29?
Yeah.
I mean, Zuccarello's 38. So
some guys are more durable than others.
That's
true. It's a fact of all sports. He just isn't that guy.
Yeah.
Well, Jack Eichel had a lot of question marks too, and it turned out pretty well for them, as we all famously know. Not a question, not about centers. A lot of people take the C on the sweater very seriously, and I'm not one. I think it's important, but I don't think it's make or break. I don't think it's you'll never win a cup with Spurgeon as the captain. I don't think anything like that is remotely close. But Spurgeon, I mean, he's not getting any younger. He's not, if it's a golf round, he's probably on 15T?
He's on the back nine for sure.
He's definitely on the back nine, maybe 15 green, but he's still got a little bit of ways. But just looking ahead, to me, the next captain, I think, has to be Brock Faber. I mean, that's the guy that jumps off the page to me. Do you think that the C is important as some people do? And who do you think the next captain will be down the road?
I think fans take it way more serious than I think in the locker room, the players know who the real leaders are. And I think the captain matters for sure, but I don't think it's nearly as big a deal. I think Faber's a great pick. But I think it gets over talked about. I don't think it matters nearly as much as the fans think it does.
I will tell you this, and again, I'm going to go back to my many years in the minor leagues, but it's always for me, because look, I'm just going to be real. You're closer to the game at that level than I am to the players and the coaches up here. It's a leadership group. It's 6, 7 guys, every team I've ever been around.
Yep.
Some of them aren't wearing letters, like Kaprizov, if he has an A, or if Eriksson has an A, it doesn't matter to those guys. So it is a larger group, generally 5, 6, 7 vets that the coach will pull in for stuff like, hey, how do we handle this situation? What do you guys think about this? That's how I've seen it run. Brock Faber would be a logical choice. To me, the thing I love about Jared Spurgeon as a captain is he sets the culture for the room with just what a good dude he is. Doesn't say boo, in a good way, and he just goes about his business. Like the year that he was hurt, right, and the Wild season was derailed, we heard after the fact, Russo, you reported this, guy couldn't barely tie his skates. Like he was undoing his skates on the bench in between shifts. He was in so much pain that year. That, to me, is the guy you want leading the charge because he sets the right example. Everybody that comes into this organization has talked about what a great room they have and how welcome they felt no matter where they've come from. Free agency, trade, in-season move, call-up. So I love that's the culture that's been set by Spurgeon and the leadership group. And so, for me, that's the biggest thing. He shows it on the ice every night, and anybody that comes to this organization speaks highly of this group of players.
Yeah, to Brett's question, I do think Faber is the logical next choice, but there's a lot that could change. Kirill just signed an 8-year deal. You have Eriksson here. You have Foligno here. You have now Quinn Hughes, a former captain here.
Matt Boldy.
You're going to have Matt Boldy is just, continues to get better from a leadership standpoint. And Connor McDavid's going to be here, and that'd be a hard sell to Connor to come here.
And you don't get 97 and you're not going to wear the C.
You're going to be 98 and you're going to wear an A.
Brian Lawton would love that if he wore 98, though. That'd be cool.
Can't wear 99, and you can't be the second 96 in Wild history. That was Bouchard.
Why not 79?
Yeah, 79.
Yeah,
just
all right, 79. Yeah, maybe.
I like 79 on him.
I got one more.
Okay.
If you like. Better chance to break into the top 6 next season. Charlie Stramel, Danila Yurov. John Hines with PA said basically Yurov's got to get stronger before. Yeah. That's his next step is he's got to get bigger and stronger.
And he's got to win some draws. He's got to win some draws. I'd say him because I heard Pat Micheletti on with Tenna the other day, and he was talking about Charlie Stramel being on the team next year. It's not the Wild style to just throw him right on the team. He's going to need some Iowa time. The other thing is, remember, with an 84-game season next year, the NHL season starts September 26th. It's going to be a very short training camp. So I think that automatically puts a lot of these young kids in a real tough spot to earn a roster spot.
And the fitness testing has changed now, too.
So I think Charlie's going to probably need to,
I would agree on that.
Charlie would have gotten a couple games down the stretch and probably would have gotten playoff games with Eriksson being out, which would have put him in a clear chance to have to maybe make the team out of camp next year. At least get him, integrated to figure out where he needs to improve this offseason and all that type of stuff. My personal opinion is he's going to start in Iowa.
I would agree with you. Yeah. And I think Yurov has a legitimate chance if he does get bigger and stronger this offseason. Yeah. You look at where he is now in his first full year compared to where Ek was, even Mikko Koivu. These are comparable styles of players. This kid's got a ton of potential. He needs to figure out the face-off thing. That's a legitimate concern, and he needs to get bigger and stronger, which at his age, he likely will. I got a lot of faith in that kid. I think he's going to be a hell of a player.
Completely agree. I want to squeeze in one more tiny little thing. Kevin, what time is your victory lap with considering all of the 2-goal and 3-goal blown leads that have happened in this playoffs? The floor is yours because you are right. That is a dangerous lead in hockey.
I never got to the 3 part of it. The 3-goal lead to me was always safe. I got to maybe
ahead of your time.
I was so far ahead of my time.
Anybody that has text message receipts from Kevin Gorg, as soon as a team goes down 2 or up 2, it's tuck, it's night.
It's not, Joe.
Game over.
And I'll tell you right now, the 2-goal lead thing in hockey is a real thing. Like I know I've been badgered and hounded, and these common man disciples get me every single
hundreds.
Yeah. Listen,
how about the Avs have blown 2 3-goal leads now? They came back to win Game 1 against the Wild, but they just blew a 3-goal lead against Vegas and lost that hockey game.
Yeah, Russo's got me frazzled with the whole goal. We don't need a goalie to win a cup thing, because I look at how close Edmonton got for 2 years. I look at what Carter Hart is doing. I mean, Freddie Anderson's fine, but he's not.
Blackwood.
Hellebuck's the best goalie in the league, and he hasn't come close. That's my. I guess that's my point.
You're putting me in a box, and I just.
Sorokin. I mean, there's a gazillion great goalies. That's my only issue. Is it's such an erratic position. I will say one of the funniest things that Russo Slacks does on X, and there's nothing that makes me laugh that he does, except when it's 2-goal lead for the Wild, and all of a sudden he just has a picture of you.
He does it every time.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It's fun.
Yeah. Let's do that. So Eric Johnson, we're going to find out if he is on something or onto something in a couple minutes. More importantly,
get us some horse steam. I want to hear about his horses and where they're running here this summer, because he does very well with those equine athletes. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to having Eric on in a couple minutes. Dean Mizutani from the Pioneer Press is also coming in studio. Touchdown
talk
Tommy.
a little bit Vikings, and we'll talk a little Vikings and a little Timberwolves and a little, we'll talk about hairstyles with Dave Mizutani. This is Michael Russo. Thanks to Kevin Gorg and Joe O'Donnell for coming in and for helping me stretch there for a while. That was a must. We'll be back here on The Fan.
You're checking out Michael Russo on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Gens Ryan.